Hello, Devlin here with you, and welcome to Devlin's Mondo Nostalgia Radio Show. Thank you for joining me on this episode. Sorry, a little bit clunky today. I'm kind of one-handed today. I don't know what I did. I hurt my wrist, and I just woke up one day and it was sore. And it's been a couple days now, and the pain's really been bad. So I think tomorrow I'm going to have to suck it up and check on it. And I highly recommend, if you ever get hurt, to not let it go so long. I didn't let this go too long, maybe 2 or 3 days. Okay, maybe that's long, but you always think, I slept on it wrong. It's going to work its way out, but it seems to be getting worse. So yeah, I'll check it out. Anyhow, that's not what I'm talking about today. It's not. Well, yeah, most of these shows are usually all about me, but I'm going to actually talk about other stuff too. Now, when I changed the name to the Mondo Nostalgia Radio Show, I think some of my regulars were a little worried that I was going to stop talking about personal stuff too. And there's a lot of pop culture in this episode, but I think this one will feel kind of like one of those old-time, my feeling things that I tend to do, because I know people still like that, and there's just times. But there's a lot of stuff here that is actually hooked to pop culture, so technically I'm sticking with it. But if you're a fan of my old style, just talking about my feelings or stuff like that, or things that affect me, then you're probably going to really enjoy this. Yeah, I'm all over the place on this, but we're going to start off with probably the hardest one to talk about, because it's the loss of a person that I've never met before. But it's funny how, we idolize people and we cherish them even though we've never met them, whether it be musicians we like, or a star, or a celebrity, or, even just a painter, or, even people that just inspire us, that, maybe they make quotes or stuff. I've always had a love for movies. I've talked about it several times. And in the last couple of years, I think my love of movies have increased for a lot of reasons. I started the review show with Damien, the Damien and Devlin show, and I love doing that. But even before that, I was starting to hunt down smaller independent films, or weirder cult films, or classic films, due to the fact that I was getting a little tired of the big budget films. I still love them, don't get me wrong, but I just felt that I'm missing out. And I know there's so many movies that come out now from little independent films that get critically acclaimed and you never hear of them again, to the big blockbusters, to right to video movies that you don't even know exist until you see it on a Walmart shelf, or you see it on a streaming service and say, what movie is this? But anyhow, I got my revamp of love when I started watching AMC Movie Talk. It featured, at the time I started watching it featured John Campea, who I was a really big fan of, and was surprised to find out that he actually comes from my city, Hamilton, Ontario. He once in a while he'll even mention stuff like going to the Tivoli, or seeing it in Hamilton, or going to Lime Ridge Mall and stuff, and it made me feel really great, because it was like, here's this guy who's in LA now talking movies, and I have no grand desires to do that, but just to see that somebody has made a career of talking movies and talking things he loves about, certainly puts, bee in your bonnet and stuff. But watching AMC, they have panels. And if you've never watched Movie Talk, it's a really wonderful thing. It's no longer AMC Movie Talk. It's now Collider Movie Talk. And Collider is now built into like a whole bunch of great shows and movie news, and they even deal with everything from wrestling. They deal with TV shows. They deal with, a little bit of everything. And if you check it out, I definitely recommend it. And through this, they brought in a whole bunch of movie lovers. Some were actually stand-up comics. Some were people who actually worked in the industry that are writers, directors, screenwriters. And through this, I found a whole bunch of people that I absolutely became fans of, and there's way too many to mention, but some of my favorites are Christian Harloff, Mark Ellis, Perry Nemiroff, and, Mark Riley, Jeff Schneider, like just so many, I can't even name them all because they're just wonderful, and I love watching what they have to say. But one of the people that I met was through there was a man named Jon Schnepp. And he's a very funny man, and I found out that he was a writer, and he's a director, and he directed some documentaries. He directed a documentary called The Death of, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a documentary that talked about the Tim Burton proposed Superman movie that was going to star Nicolas Cage. And it didn't happen, but Jon Schnepp became so enamored by it that he made this documentary. I'd love to see it one day. It's harder to find. But he also is a comic book expert, and whenever they'd have him on a panel and there'd be movie talk about like a Marvel, DC, or just any comic book, he'd pretty much be well read on it and know of it. And if he didn't, he'd go out and read about it. But, he was one of those, he used to call himself Sweaty, and he always called like movie fans and comic book fans sweaties. And at first when I heard this, I thought, isn't that kind of offensive? But people love being called sweaties, and they've always called John the king of the sweaties, and it makes me smile. But anyhow, he's one of those guys that you'd probably see at a comic book shop every Wednesday night, when comic book releases come out, and even I knew that. So I don't read a lot of comic books, but I went through comic book phases, so I even knew that Wednesday is the night you go to see all the new releases, and he'd be right there and picking up graphic novels. Even on my Mondo Nostalgia page, I've posted, he used to do a thing where he and another guy, Jeremy Johns, another man I met through Collider, basically went and would they'd go to comic book shops, and it didn't last very long, but I actually loved it. I loved him talking to people and asking what their love of comics or what their thing is. And Collider had a short run of a comic book shopping, it was called, and Jon Schnepp wrote that, and he was the host, and he was very funny. Anyhow, the reason I bring this up is for those of you who don't know Jon Schnepp, or probably do, Jon Schnepp passed away this past week, and I was shocked how much it affected me, because I always liked the guy. He always made me smile. Even little things he did. He and Christian Harloff used to do the panel, and whenever they'd hear a story that they weren't too particularly fond of, you'd just see the host, Mark, would be trying to be serious, or John at the time, and they would make these faces that I do quite regularly now, and they used to call them shit rats. When I do it at work, we call it the gopher, because shit rats is not appropriate. But it's basically a look like, I don't know what's going on, I really don't care what's going on, I don't think I like what's going on, and it's a great face. I'll send Corda a picture. I think I did it. I did the face for an old supervisor of mine. Whenever she was having a bad time, I'd do the shit rat face, and she'd just giggle. So I took a whole bunch of pictures of it, so she would have me doing it. So I will be able to show you what it is. If you're watching on YouTube, obviously, if you're listening to this on iTunes or Google or whatever, one of the podcast things, you won't see it. But anyhow, he used to do this, and he used to make me laugh. And what I used to love about Jon Schnepp's critique on movies, we didn't always agree on stuff, but he was honest and open, and the others, sometimes they seem like they know more movies. But Jon Schnepp would tell it like it is, and I don't care about that movie. I've never seen, like they'd talk about Mamma Mia, and the others would try to go see as many movies as they possibly can. But, Jon Schnepp would be like, I have no interest in Mamma Mia, so I have no interest or anything, talking about it and stuff. So, but he'd always do it also with, sometimes he'd do it delicately and just try to, like, well, if it's for people, that's good. They went to see it. That's awesome. Other times he'd just be in a mood and you could tell he's like, I'm having none of it. And that's what I loved about him. He was very real, and I try to be very real. And that's why sometimes I get a little over passionate. But he suffered a massive stroke. Now, for the longest time, they just said he was in the hospital. Then his fiance Holly was posting kind of little updates, but they only gave a little bit at a time, and I totally respect that, because nowadays, it's easy to just post everything on social media, but they're also dealing with all this kind of stuff, and because of it, it's easy to forget that these people are dealing with something big. It's shocking for us, and we're obviously saddened too, but it's hard for people who are going through it. But as the week went on, we started finding out that, first he was in the hospital, then we found out it was critical, and then we found out it was a massive stroke, and that they were making decisions and they needed the time and the privacy. Now, they respected all the love and prayers people sent. They also set up a charity thing, because, the Collider people, although they entertain us with hours and hours and hours of shows, they don't get paid quite a lot. So they have to find ways to subsidize. So they did open up a charity, because they knew the medical bills, this is the States we're talking, so the medical bills are going to skyrocket. And basically, one day I came home and Mike just kind of took me aside and said, I really don't want to give you this news, but Jon Schnepp died. And it turns out that they had no choice but to make the decision that no person should ever have to be in the decision to make, to take their loved one off life supports. Apparently, the massive stroke caused so much damage that he would never be the Jon Schnepp we would have. His life would be absolutely horrible. I'm not going to speculate how bad, but the fact that they had to pull the plug tells me that he may have had just a life of just not the life he wanted. And it was sad, because he died just as Comic-Con was starting, and he was a regular at Comic-Con. In fact, some of you went to San Diego or some of the other Comic-Cons, you might have actually met him if you're a fan. The good news is you can go see some Jon Schnepp still. The Collider stuff is all over YouTube. He did a show called Heroes. He did the comic book shopping, as I said. Not to mention check out his thing, because he was a documentarian, and he did write for some shows and stuff like that. I'm actually just going back and discovering so many of the things that he did. I wanted to bring this up just because Collider has meant so much to me, because it's reopened my love for movies again, and he was one of the people, and when I found out about it, I just couldn't stop crying. And the truth of the matter is that I just felt I had to talk about it, because sometimes you're touched by people that you don't think of. It's funny, like when celebrities die, I remember, I was pretty devastated with Michael Jackson and Prince. And then, Whitney Houston, I was saddened by, but I was like, you kind of knew it was coming, but it was still a shock. But then every once in a while you get hit by somebody that you really didn't realize you meant that world. I remember when Lucille Ball died, I was a lot younger, but I had a hard time with it. And I used to watch I Love Lucy and The Lucy Show and Here's Lucy and all those shows. And I've always respected Lucy, but it's not like I used to have altars in my house about Lucy, but I was surprised how it hit me. So when Jon Schnepp died, I literally fell apart. And I think another reason why is because he was 51 years old, which is a year older than me. And you think about that kind of stuff all the time, that you're living your life. Like literally, he's going to movies, he's seeing Infinity War, he's looking forward to the next installment, which unfortunately he won't get to see. And stuff like that. And then all of a sudden your life is either changed or gone. So I wanted to kind of say this to, just to let people know that, cherish your life because of the fact that you just don't know when it's going to be taken from you. And I try to cherish my life. I'm at a point in my life, I've talked about making big changes, and I think, and I'm not trying to be morbid with this, so please don't see it that way. I know it is going to feel it, but I'm almost at the point in my life that, yes, I've got a ton of stuff I still want to do, but I don't have one of those bucket lists. I've done more than I ever thought I would do in my life. And with that being said, if I died tomorrow, I feel I've already had a complete life. Now, other people might look at it and say, but you've never done this or this. And I said, yeah, but I'm not like other people. I don't have to cross things off. I don't have to, I never looked life as a set plan. And so I don't sit there and just cross things off my list and say, I have to do this, I have to do this, I never did this. I don't. I look at the stuff that I've already done, like the lives I've touched. I'm going to end this with, obviously, I'm still hurting a little from the Jon Schnepp thing, and it's going to be hard watching Collider thinking, oh, Jon's not on this week, and then reminding myself that he's passed away. But a friend of mine, Gary Reed, wrote something to me that was mind-blowing, and I'm going to share it with you. And I had wrote a thing on Facebook about how, this man and all the other Collider members have changed my life in a lot of ways because they made me love movies again. They made me laugh and made me think. And Gary just wrote me this thing about how he's so sorry. And a couple people did, which thank you for that. Because as I said, it's not like Jon Schnepp was a relative of mine or anything. But I love that a couple people wrote me and said, I'm really sorry for your loss. I know that must be hard for you. I love that people, know, well, he may not have met him, but I know Devlin. Devlin's going to be affected by this. And I love the people that reached out for me. So thank you for that. But Gary wrote a thing saying that, he's sorry for my loss and he can understand that, this was a person who made me laugh and inspired me and did this. And he said, but you got to remember that you are that person to me and you are that person to other people. And it's almost mind-blowing when people tell me stuff like that. Like recently, a lady that I call Nana, she told me that I was an inspiration to her. And she sees that I'm an inspiration to lots of people. And, I just try to be a good person. And it blows me away when people tell me that they see me as a hero or an inspiration. And it makes me feel good. Don't get me wrong, who wouldn't? But it also blows my mind because of the fact that I don't think of myself in those terms. And so thank you, Gary, for that, to remind me that, yes, I lost Jon Schnepp and he will stay in my heart. But at the same time, I must remind myself that I continue to be a person that people can look up to and be inspired by, or just if my face or my name comes up, they smile. That's all I strive for. I just want to be a good person. Anyhow, we'll have some more serious stuff coming up later, but I thought since Jon Schnepp was a movie reviewer as well, I decided I've seen a movie and I'm going to review it because that's what I do, and it's a nice way of showing everyone that I'm moving on, and I've still got lots of great stuff to do, and even reviewing a movie like Skyscraper, which came out in theaters. It stars Dwayne Johnson, Neve Campbell, Chin Han, Roland Mueller, Noah Taylor. Yes, I'm reading this. And it was directed by Rawson Marshall Thurber. And for those of you who don't know what it is, it's probably in theaters right now still, although it's not doing so well. A lot of people were surprised because Dwayne Johnson has got a good track record of movies, but this one isn't doing well. And I think there's a couple of reasons for why. One, it totally, when the first trailer hit, everybody said it looked like he was just remaking Die Hard, just for a modern era. And I'll touch on that a little later about why I don't think you'll get another movie like Die Hard. I shouldn't say that because it could happen, but Die Hard was a very special movie, but we'll get to that because we're talking Skyscraper. I have to say that I was never bored during Skyscraper, but I kind of made me hate myself a little bit because I enjoyed it. And when I say I enjoy it, I'm not saying I loved it by any means. I'm just saying that it entertained me. But the thing that made me hate myself for it is that every trope this movie uses is something that I absolutely can't stand. Yeah, they used every, cliche in the book. And normally, I don't mind cliches. If they're used once in a while, it's fine. This movie uses every cliche in the book, and I drank the Kool-Aid every time. As I said, I didn't just love Skyscraper or anything. I just thought it was mildly entertaining, and it's not a movie I never necessarily even have to see again in my lifetime. But as I said, it was always entertaining. Dwayne Johnson has a charm about him that it's hard not to like him because he just seems like a nice guy. I have to say the standout in this movie for me was Neve Campbell. She's not in it a lot, but it was nice to see her. She had a great career with Scream and a whole bunch of other movies, 54 and lots of other stuff, and then she just kind of disappeared. So it was nice to actually see her back on the screen again, and as I said, she was my favorite part of the movie. The action's fine. The sequences are fine. The story is just okay. The characters are just fine enough to care about, but as I said, every stereotypical trope that they used, I was rolling my eyes, but at the same time, I was never bored by it. And that's not what you really want from one of these movies. I like these over-the-top disaster films. I usually really enjoy them. For the lack of characters in them, I'm surprised that they didn't develop the characters enough. Like, even characters, would show up, and I could instantly tell, that guy's a bad guy. I could just tell. Just the way they're writing it, I can just tell that he's not going to be a good person. And it's stuff like that drove me crazy. Little Hollywoodisms, the family would have all these little niches, Neve Campbell is like this Navy surgeon, which is awesome, but she'd have trouble with her phone. So you knew that later on in the movie that would play an importance in the movie. The kids were, kind of cute. They weren't sickening cute. I thought they were really nice, but, they had this thing they did with their father, who loves you? Who loves you? And I'm not saying that fathers and daughters and mothers and sons don't have these little things. It's just when they're pushed over and over again to the point where it's just, you're like, oh my God, it feels more like something in the script rather than something thing. This kind of stuff just makes me just cringe, I don't want to give away too much, but they almost do the old that married people are more important than single people, and that's why single people do things that we question. Just everything in the script made me angry, but I was never really bored in the movie, but I was never really engaged as well. So I think that's kind of a mixed thing. Now, they tried to make this like Die Hard, but the thing is a lot of people forget some of the things about Die Hard that are awesome. And the two things is, one, your lead is an actual everyday man. He's a New York cop that went to see his wife and winds up, in the middle of this terrorist thing. Okay. And what other people forget also is that Hans Gruber was we didn't learn a lot about his backstory, but he was an interesting character. We actually were intrigued by him. He was also pretty smart. It wasn't just reacting. He always seemed to have an answer to something and figured things out pretty, Like, you felt he was actually figuring it out, not just the script telling him, okay, we're going to learn about this now. Dwayne Johnson tries to do these movies where he's an everyman. Now, yes, they do make him a military person that, had an issue. And I don't think this is a real spoiler, because I try not to do them, but it is in the trailer, both trailers, is that something happened where there was an explosion and he lost his leg. Now, for me, Dwayne Johnson doesn't come off as an everyman because he's got this huge physique. And sure, they make him a military guy, so that explains it, so I'm okay with that. But it seems like they give him the disability to kind of level the tables a bit, because, they didn't go for adversaries that were like, I have bigger muscles than him and stuff like that. So they kind of gave him that, not as a handicap, but just kind of a, look, he's not a superhero. He's got issues. But the problem is, John McClane really fought in Die Hard, and there's parts where, he's literally like, stepping on glass with bare feet. And he's like limping a lot of times and stuff like that. With Dwayne Johnson's disability, and again, this doesn't give away too much, and I'm not going into details, but even the trailer showed way too much. He uses that leg almost every chance he gets. He uses it in various different ways, and it almost turns that disability into a superpower. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, like to make something that some people would call a handicap into something superpower is a really good thing. But again, it was trying to, give Dwayne Johnson that feel of he's just an average man, and within seconds you realize, no, he's not. And I think that's the problem why I think Die Hard will be tough to make again, because they seem to forget that. You can put a disaster in a big building, you can put it on a boat, you can put it anywhere. But every men are not there anymore. You've got to concentrate on the characters. It's not just about thing. And Die Hard is about the characters, Anyhow, I think one of the reasons Skyscraper failed for me is and didn't do well at the box office is I honestly thought they showed a lot in the trailers. And if they didn't do it in the trailers in the theaters, on TV, they seem to show more and more. And I know a lot of people, when they saw the trailer, said, I think I just saw the movie. And so why would you bother going to spend your hard-earned money when you can wait for it to come out on Netflix, or wait for it to come on any other streaming services, or just wait till it comes on regular TV at some point? They showed way too much of it, and I felt that too, even going into it. I wasn't even planning to go to it, but a good friend of mine, Dave, just said, I'd like to see it. I'll pay your way, and hey, I'll go. And I did, and I'm glad I saw it, but as I said, it's not a movie I think I'd ever go see again. So if you like that kind of just no-nonsense, forget about it kind of action films, then you'll probably get a kick out of Skyscraper. But if you're looking for something that's going to stand the test of time, you might want to check out Jumanji that Dwayne Johnson did, which is a much better film. Anyhow, I'm going to give Skyscraper 2.5, and that's I'm being very generous with that. 2.5 out of 5, and so check it out at your will. Anyhow, I'm going to tackle a interesting subject. I was going to do it as a status on Facebook, but I felt that people would think I'm an ass or a douche. And I thought, no, I better talk. I want to make sure I get all my points clear. I'm going to tackle the first 8 minutes of the movie Up, the Pixar movie, that I see memes all the time about how people want this life. And I'm going to talk about my feelings about it, because it's a beautiful 8 minutes. Don't get me wrong, I'm not putting that down. But I'm going to actually talk about why I think it's a lot harder to have this life now than it was back then. And yeah, you might not want to hear it, but I need to tell it. So we're going to take a short intermission break. So grab yourself a beverage or whatever else you like to snack on. I'll see you in just a few minutes.
Famous for gracious living and delicious cooking comes America's favorite barbecue sandwich, Castleberry's, of course. You'll find this taste-tempting barbecue and other good things to eat and drink at our snack bar. Remember, Castleberry's brings you genuine Southern barbecue, cooked slowly over open pits to the peak of barbecue flavor in the true tradition of the Old South. Here's old-fashioned Southern barbecue at its mouth-watering best, with that wonderful hickory smoke flavor. So for a real treat, enjoy a Castleberry barbecue sandwich.
Hello, welcome back. Devlin Bishop here with you, and I'm here with you on the Mondo Nostalgia Radio Show. And I'm going to be talking about a subject that's been on my mind for a couple of weeks now. And usually if it doesn't disappear, it means you got to talk about it. Now, I wanted to write a status about this, and then I thought, no, I think people are going to take it the wrong way. So, I know lots of people don't listen to this, but I want to kind of talk about this because, again, I'm not trying to be morbid, but if something does happen to me down the line and somebody goes back and listens to this, and if they get something out of this, I hope they do, because I am trying to teach here. And this is my opinion only. It's not the right opinion, just an opinion I strongly believe in. And as I said, if it weighs heavily on my head, I have to talk about it. And it technically is linked to pop culture, because it's the first 8 or 9 minutes of the movie Up, Pixar's movie about the old man who puts balloons on his house in order to fulfill a wish that his dying wife had, that they would share adventures and stuff like that. It's a wonderful movie. It's not my favorite Pixar movie. I actually think the first 8 to 9 minutes, like everybody else, is probably some of the best stuff Pixar has ever given us. But I actually think the rest of the movie is only okay. Even though they do try to hit some I respect them for hitting some very big social issues that sadly didn't last longer than the 8 minutes, because I think in a lot of ways it's a movie that's supposed to be about respect, about respecting your elders, or even respecting younger people, because I think the relationship between the old man and the young guy, I should pull up the thing so I actually have names on it. I haven't seen Up in a while, but I have seen the 8 minutes talked about a lot. And because people want that relationship. And I understand why they want it. It's so well filmed and beautiful. And the thought of finding someone and growing old with them is just, who wouldn't want that, And I certainly always wanted that, and I believe I found it. But of course, we still don't know that. But Mike and I are, well, right now are absolutely living a lot of the life that we see in that, and I can't see it changing anytime soon. So, so Carl and his wife Ellie, at the beginning of the movie, they basically give us an 8-minute look at their life. They look at some of the simple things. They look at the big events in their lives, some of the traumas that they had to deal with, and of course, also, Ellie's fate. And if you haven't seen Up yet, I won't give it up, but obviously I told you it's about a widower, and Ellie's fate and the relationship. And you see the whole love affair build in the first 8 minutes. And as I said, I'm not putting that down in any way, because that is probably one of the most beautiful images that Pixar ever gave us. And a lot of people put MEMS, life goals, trying to find that person. And I think that's I think it's a human nature to constantly be looking for somebody in your life that compliments you like that. It's sad that we become so obsessed by it that when we don't find it, we consider that a fail. And I really think we need to teach that, just because you don't get married or just because you don't find that relationship doesn't make it a fail. Some lives, I think, are meant to not have relationships like that. But anyhow, we all want it. Who wouldn't want it? Finding somebody that you're going to grow old with, dealing with, sweet times, dealing with tragic times. And I know I'm going to come off, some people are going to really not like me after this, but I hope you really listen to my words, because I'm not putting down people. I am a little bit. First of all, I'm going to say that I think it's wonderful that people constantly want to find this kind of relationship. But I want to remind people, and I'm not doing this to be dark or negative. I'm not saying you can't have this kind of relationship. What I am saying is that it's hard. And I think because they sum up this relationship in 8 minutes, and the fact that people have taken this as religion, like this is the goal, I think it's beautiful, but you have to know what you're getting into looking for this, okay? First of all, they don't show you all the little things in the life. They show you little things like going to a picnic and you know, the romance, but they don't show you the little hiccups that every relationship has. You know, the financial stuff, when you both start working and you both start, you know, having kids. Now, in this case, they didn't have kids, but that doesn't mean, like, every relationship's different and however you have it. But they don't show you those little day-to-day events, and sometimes those little day-to-day events are the things that eventually end relationships. Sometimes we can get through the big things like disease, or, you know, dealing with the fact that you can't have children, or dealing with the fact that your children is sick. But I'm just saying that it's those little things, you know, overdrawn at the bank, or the little argument you had because there was a misunderstanding. It's usually those that are built up that eventually end relationships. And Up didn't really show that. They just showed you like milestones in their relationship. And the reason, and again, I am not trying to be somebody who's destroying this image, because I'm not. It's a beautiful image, but I'm trying to tell you what you need to do in order to at least have a chance. Every relationship, I'm telling you, has the potential of either being long and beautiful, or it's not going to last. And I think if you talk to even people who've been married 50, 60 years, they will tell you the good and the bad. You know, the thing I'm just trying to say is a lot of times it's those little things that add up to cause the real troubles in a relationship. People can become strong by being together, you know, holding their hands during hard times and stuff. But sometimes we forget to be there for our significant other through the little things. And it's those little things that chip away at us, and suddenly those quirky little habits that they had start getting on our nerves, unless you learn how to deal with it. And in no way am I saying that Mike and I are perfect in any means, and like this is my advice to you. Mike and I believe, will make it to the end. But we don't know what the world brings us. So there could be any number of reasons that could cause a relationship to end early. I'm not just saying breakups. I'm talking about death, disease, anything. Long distance relationships, you know. So anyhow, that's my first part of it. Up doesn't really show you all those little things. And it's those struggles that you have to deal with. And if you can deal with those struggles, then you'll get through the big things too. But a lot of times we don't get through those little things, and those little things add up and eventually are the things that break up a relationship. I also have to remind people that Carl and Ellie are from a different generation. And again, I am not saying you can't have this relationship as a newer generation. But what I am saying is they come from a generation where they were more selfless. Now, I'm not saying there weren't any selfish people back in the day, but there was generations from the past, including my generation, and that were grown up kind of thinking of the family unit, kind of thinking as the couple as a two. Now, when you first find a relationship, yes, you're constantly thinking about us, but you do it in a way that's kind of weird, because I've seen people actually get rid of friendships because they found this new love. And then when that friendship breaks up, they wonder why the other friend isn't still there for them anymore. Well, you destroyed that. We took that into account. Friendships were just as important as love affairs. So they come from a generation where you worked on things. Not to mention, if something was broken, you really worked hard to fix it. Now, there was a lot of relationships in the past that ended in divorce, but not as many due to the fact that a lot of people stayed even in bad marriages because they thought they could fix it. I know a couple of couples that probably should have been divorced, but they stayed around, whether it was for the kids. I'm not saying this is a positive thing, but I remember my parents used to always say, I would have left your father long ago if it wasn't for you kids. Now, that is not something that any kid should hear. Even if it's true, for them, they should not be telling their kids that. But I've never said my parents were perfect in any way. But what I'm saying is that a lot of times they would stay together not only for the kids, but they committed to it. A commitment meant something. And I think nowadays, commitments do mean something. But how many relationships I've seen nowadays, not just by younger people, but even older people who are in like their second relationship, where all you see is how happy they are. Here's a post of us doing things, right? And then they break up and they start posting, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. This was the love of my life. And then 3 months later, they're in a new relationship with yet another love of their life. See, if you're going to be able to get rid over somebody, the movie Up, let's look past the last 8 minutes. Carl can't get past losing his wife. He's dedicating his life to doing something that he always promised Ellie he would do. And that's the thing that is really powerful, because his love for her, he didn't just get married again. He's still mourning his wife. And now when I see relationships that people are like, oh, this is the most important relationship of my life, and then 3-4 months later they're in another relationship, and they're always like, well, don't judge me, you don't know how it happened, we were friends a long time ago. Look, I understand we all have this urge of fear of not wanting to be alone at the end of our lives, but when you want something like Up, you really have to work at it. And the problem is we are growing up with a selfish society. It's always worried about us. I had a hard day at work. I'm burnt out. I can't deal with stuff. So that's why I can't hang out with you. I just want to go on my computer. I don't want to talk to you, honey. I can't deal with it. Well, you know what? Sometimes you have to deal with it, because that's how you work on it. And yes, it's a struggle. There's nothing worse than sometimes I come home having a bad day, and then I spew everything to Mike. And then I realize that Mike is having a bad day, and the first instinct I have is, oh my God, I should be there for him. And I put my troubles aside for him, just like he constantly puts his troubles away for me. But a lot of times now that doesn't happen. Some people are like, I'm not getting enough attention from my thing. Back in the, from my, my wife, my husband, my fiance, whatever. And what would happen is, you would either live with it and hope it makes itself better. You would work at it to put it together. But now what happens is you wind up, maybe at work there's somebody you can talk to, and suddenly they're giving you the attention that you're not getting. And suddenly it's all about you again. And then one day you go home and realize, oh, I don't love my wife anymore because this other person gives me attention. So what I'm saying is that it's not really anybody's fault. We are raising people to be more selfish now than selfless. You have a hard time finding volunteers for stuff because of the fact that, oh, I'm too busy. I don't have this. I cherish volunteers, and I should do more volunteering, and it's something I would like to look into once I get my big old messed up head straight. But I cherish them because they have hard lives, and then they go in and try to make other people's lives easier. But we don't have that a lot now. It all comes down to us. I'm not saying we don't care when our significant other, and I really hate that term, but we don't, it's not like we don't care when they're having bad times, but at the end of the day, we figure out how, and I'm guilty of it too, is how does this affect us? Oh my God, they're sad again. They're angry again. I can't deal with this. Oh, look, somebody's giving me more attention. So all I'm saying is you can have what they had in Up. You can have that 8 minutes, but you need to work at it. And I don't think, unfortunately, the newer generations are not being taught those tools. I don't like to put love with appliances, but back in the day, they used to make appliances that you could have. I remember I was told the year I was born, my mother got a washer and dryer. And that washer and dryer broke down several times, and they got it fixed. And they wound up having that dryer for over 35 years. And because they constantly fix it or find ways to deal with it. Nowadays, appliances are made so they will break after 5-10 years. They don't make TVs to last. I remember when your TV would break, you'd always have that old black and white one that you could bring out until the other one was fixed or you bought a new one. And that TV would last forever, and you'd always have it. You could plug it in, you'd have a backup. But nowadays, they make things so that 2 years from now, you have to buy a new TV or buy a new computer or upgrade your phone. So we're not taught to work on things anymore. Why fix your phone when you can go out and do it? So I'm not saying you can't have the first 8 minutes of Up. You just got to realistically look at the fact that they didn't show how much work they had to put in this relationship. They didn't show the little aggravations that each day they had to deal with. And trust me, I will tell you something. I've lost friends. Those little aggravations are the things you're going to miss most about those people in some ways. Anyhow, I'm done. I'm sorry if I upset you in any way. I just wanted to give you some food for thought. I love the 8 minutes of Up. I think it's the most beautiful thing Pixar's ever given us. But I also think that people are embracing it a little too much. And I think there's nothing wrong with fighting for those goals. You just got to realize there's a lot of work to it. It's not magic. It doesn't just happen. You need to work. Both people. See, that's the other thing people forget. If you're a dreamer and you want that, it's not just enough that you want it. There's another person that needs to want it too. And there's a good chance that nowadays, because we live in a more selfish society, we don't fight for it because 20 years I've been married to this person. Suddenly I want something different in my life, and that other person wants something different. And suddenly you might just find that you're looking at a day when your significant other is looking at you and saying, I can't do this anymore. And you're still thinking about the 8 minutes of Up that you both wanted. So I don't mean to be a downer, but I'm just saying you need to work on it, and you need to find a person who will work on it. And I can tell you right now, early relationships, get rid of the first year because that's all positives and stuff. You can start seeing little signs. If they're changing their minds on things, if they're trying to manipulate situations, I know we're trying to, but you can actually see signs that you're with a person that isn't going to be the same person in 20 years. And as I said, back in the older generations, we didn't do that because we were happy. I'm in a happy relationship. I'm happy with my life. We'd add little things, but we wouldn't just go and, change it and stuff like that. We would, now we go and learn more. We're in an information society, so we go out and search things. And sometimes we find things that change our life that we don't expect. Education, and I'm not saying nothing wrong about education, but we could learn stuff about ourselves like, oh, I'm maybe meant to do this rather than that. We meet people that we don't expect to meet. That change our lives, that make us look for things and think. That person that gives us more attention than our partner does, and suddenly they're the things we kind of strive for. So thing. I'll leave it with this. Sometimes when you see two old people walking and you just kind of smile and think, oh, I want that. Keep in mind something. Before you realize that that's exactly what you want, remember, those two people could have already had 2 or 3 relationships. They could have had 2 or 3 husbands, 203 wives. They may have already had that. Just because you see 2 old people together, that doesn't mean that they've been together for 75 years. That could mean we met 3 years ago. That doesn't make it any less beautiful. So, but don't just assume. Just as if you see, you know, when they do the weather and they say, let's take a look at birthdays and anniversaries on your, TV news, and they show a marriage that's lasted 70 years, and you're just like, oh, that's amazing. I bet you if you talk to those people, there's a chance they might have had an amazing life, but I bet you there was a lot of strife. I bet you there's some marriages that just, they didn't break up because it was just the commitments or something they believed in. And sadly to say, there's probably a couple that were married 70 years that aren't happy, because I see a lot of widows that are suddenly have a new lease on life because they're forced into it. And then some you can tell are just devastated because they've lost that person. Anyhow, I've been a downer for long enough, and we're going to move into a little bit of a happier topic, I hope. But anyhow, I hope I didn't ruin that. Please strive for the 8 minutes of up. I waited till later in life, and I had some relationships that didn't work. And I now have not only somebody absolutely I love in my life, and we met later in our 30s, and I think that helped because of the fact that we kind of knew where our lives were going already. Whereas in our 20s, we were, a little bit different people, and it might not have worked. But I've also met some friends that I know I'm going to have till the end of my life, and that's just a wonderful thing too. Anyhow, I'm going to talk, and again, personally, this is probably the one that has just a little bit to do with pop culture. Recently, I posted about a pop that I just bought. A pop vinyl, there's those little figures with the big eyes that when I first saw them, I didn't want anything to do with them. I thought they weren't very cool. And then I got one that I liked, and then I started just getting into it. And I started being one of those, I'm just going to collect the ones I really like, and that's it. And then, of course, now I collect pretty much any one I see that I'm like, yeah, I'm getting that. That's cheap. So I have a lot of them now. I think I have over 50, and I probably will have a lot more by the time this phase is over. And I'm already searching for Baby Driver, so I know I'm already obsessed with some, and a couple that are coming down, the Banana Splits, the Lost Boy. Yeah, there's tons. But anyhow, I posted this on my Facebook, and a lady, and I'm not going to call out things, wrote to me, and I just made it for fun. Like, I have an addiction, and I'm buying these a lot, and I'm proud of them. And she wrote to me about how she used to collect something, Beanie Babies, and that she eventually got rid of them and couldn't believe how much money she spent on them. But it gave her temporary joy when she bought them. And she said, but, think about, are they going to cause you joy in the future? Are they going to cause you happiness? That money could go towards an adventure or go out to a meal or something like that. And I understand where she came from, and I appreciate that she wrote that with my concern in mind. But then I realized how a little bit offended I was by that, due to the fact that, how do you know me? Anybody who knows me, I have toys all around here, and I may not look at every toy every day. I don't play with every toy every day, but there are moments in my life where I'm having an anxiety or stress or just a bad day, and I look over and I see a little toy, and it reminds me of somebody who gave it to me, or maybe something that, why I bought it. Like, I have a Mighty Mouse I bought that actually makes me think of Michael when he is in a really, really happy mood. And he's got this big smile. I'm not even the biggest Mighty Mouse fan, but I loved it so much. And every time I look at that, it makes me smile, because I think of Mike when he's in a very happy time. And I thought to myself, I appreciate that you wrote this, but you don't know me. Some people actually cherish their collections and stuff, and some people don't look at it as a monetary value. Yes, I could say, oh my God, like I sometimes say, oh my God, the amount of money I spent on DVDs, and I probably won't even watch all of them in my lifetime. But I don't regret it, and I don't regret like when I see like, I spent so much money on buying that series, and now I could buy the whole series for like 20% of what I paid. I don't think of it. I just think of how much joy it's given me, or, that I can put that on at any time I want and it'll make me feel happy. So anyhow, I just wrote her a thing that basically explained it, and I appreciated it, but I wanted to let her know that that doesn't mean that is what's right for me. And it's great. Yeah, I could spend my money on going on a trip, but I don't like to travel. So yes, I might have some good memories, but I might not. I like going out with friends to a restaurant, but I hate going to expensive restaurants where, other people are like, oh, just taste the salad. Look at the steak. I think of, oh my God, the money I'm spending and all I'm doing is eating stuff that's going to make poo. I don't want to be graphic or gross, but that's how I think. Because I have a kid's mentality in some ways. And I think there's a good thing about that sometimes. And sometimes you need to remember that people are in different places in their lives. I know people I hang out with who are very adult. They are very mature. Some of them are younger than me and they act like old people. Where I am 50 years old and I act like a child. I am an adult, as in I can make adult decisions, I can do adult things, but I choose to live my life younger because that's makes me happy. If it makes you happy to be an adult and, do what you want to do, I'm not going to judge you for it. But please do not judge me for the fact that, some people think, you have to follow. I was talking about when Jon Schnepp died, that some people have this list, this bucket list. I have to go to this place. I have to go to this place. That's great if you live your life that way. That's not how I live my life. I don't say, oh, I got to get to Germany. I'd love to go to Germany. I used to live there when I was a baby. I'd love to see Germany. If I don't get there, it's not the end of the world. Why? Because I did other things that I wanted to do. I helped a friend out of a bad time. Too much in this world, we think that the answers for us are going to be the answers for everybody else. And maybe, I understand it. That's what we know. But when you actually put down people for the fact that they've made decisions. I told Mike recently, I love my life. I come home from work and sometimes, work was shitty. But I come home and I'm actually planning with friends what movies we're going to see. I sometimes have to work on role-playing things because we're all getting together to role-play. Or I'm planning like a dance party that we do here, or a retro TV night, or a trivia night. And I love that I'm not constantly thinking about coming home and, I got to think of the taxes, and I have to go over, I have to mow the lawn, I have to, we got to reseed the thing. If that's your life, that's great. And you've chosen that, and that makes you happy. Me, that would be hell to me. To come home and then, there's your honey-do list. I've got to fix this. I got to fix that. Mike and I are very adult. We something breaks, we try to fix it. If we don't, we have to go out and buy it. We make the decisions together. I have brothers that, they see a bigger TV and it's on sale. They'll go out and buy it, and then they'll think, maybe we shouldn't have done it. Mike and I are both the kind of people that if, the TV's broken, I guess we have to buy a new TV. That's not saying we don't go out and say, hey, I wish I had that TV. But just because I choose a life that is focused on having fun, and I love that about my life, and I see other people that are in the same thing, I see, and I love these people just as much, whether you're somebody you love just doing stuff on your honey-do list, or you like doing things. Then I see these older people that are older than me that are out at jazz clubs, or they're at a rock concert, and they're posting, you should do this, you should do this, you should do that. And I love that, because they're not forcing you to it. They're just saying, hey, look, there's a life out there, and you should live it. And I love seeing these older people that are doing that, because I want to be one of those. I was recently at a young club that I talked about on my podcast, and I was up there dancing with my friend who was close to my same age, and we had a wonderful time. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. And I love seeing these people. I know a friend named Helen, and I know a friend named Lou that constantly are posting all these little adventures they're going to. And they're not necessarily always big adventures. They're just like, I went to a club, I went to a jazz festival, I went to an art gallery opening, and I don't love these people any more than the people that are writing about taking care of their kids or anything. You got to remember that it's great when you want to give your point of view, but when you start being a little bit judgmental and saying, well, my life would work great for you, it doesn't. I'm a kid. The picture I chose for this is me on a swing. I used to love going on swings when I was younger, and a couple of years back I went to a friend's wedding. We all know my feelings on weddings, but there was a swing set out where we were taking the pictures, and after the pictures were done, I actually went to the swing set and decided to swing to deal with some anxieties and stresses. And I realized that my mind couldn't handle it. I don't know if it was my vertigo kicking in, but I used to swing for tons of time, and now I couldn't go a couple of minutes without me feeling nauseous. And it really saddened me, because I try to live my life young, and sometimes our bodies don't let us do that. And it really kind of saddened me because of that. But recently I went on a trail, and me and my friend just went for a walk, and we talked, and we had a nice time, and we talked about serious adult stuff, but we also talked about things that made us happy when we were young. And we stumbled across this swing that's in the picture at the front, and I got on it, and I said, I know I can't do it for as long as I used to, but I'm still going to do it, because it's what I do. So I only swang a bit. I asked my friend, take some pictures of me, because I don't think I have any pictures of me on a swing. And I decided that I don't care if you don't understand my life. And yeah, sometimes I try to tell people, like I try to lead them in the right direction. I never try to tell people what they should do, but sometimes, as most old people do, we try to give our knowledge, even though we know a lot of people won't listen to it. But what I try to do is not tell people how to live their life, but I try to open up their mind to let them know that things could happen. And I'm certainly, when those things do happen, and I like when I'm wrong, because sometimes I can predict things a little too good, and I will be there for my friend, and I won't say I told you so, even though I did. I don't feel that's going to help in any way. So, all I'm trying to say with this is, live the life you have, respect the ones other people have, even though it's hard. And I'm not perfect at this too. There's a lot of friends that I try to kind of open their minds to, like, have you thought that this could happen? Did you thought, without doing it too obvious? And sometimes I know I have to get back, but yeah, it makes it difficult. Anyhow, I'm going to leave it on that note. I'm glad I made this podcast. My hand is hurting a lot, so it's time for painkillers. I am going to get it checked out, so I hope by the next podcast I'm going to be right as rain. In the meantime, I'm also starving to death, so I'm going to go and make some breakfast. And I hope you go out and have a meal and have something, and I will talk to you all very, very soon.